people. The mountain will always be there. Turn around, especially if clouds are black. I'm not, I'm no meteorologist, but if they're that dark, that's not
Nothing good is coming from them.
no black cloud has ever delivered like puppies, right?
Okay. That's
So
not that's not where the unicorns come from. It's those
yeah,
clouds.
rainbow bright or little golden retriever,
Oh
fluffy
gosh.
golden retrievers falling onto the trail. No, that's not how it happens.
Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. This episode, Zach throws away his sterno cans. I befriend a Great Dane, and we go through some hot takes that we've got for this summer. Well, Dr. Simpson, how are you doing this fine summer day?
I am doing great, Eric. Since we last recorded, I went on a hiking trip.
You did.
And I hiked 3 peaks. Well, 2.95 peaks in over a 4-day stretch. I hiked Marble Mountain, Conejos Peak, and the 0.95 is Mount Antero. And I will go into that later with my second hot take. It's not smoking hot. My first take is a little hot, but yeah, I had a great trip, came home. Just been enjoying time at home with my family. Since I'm a professor, I've got my summer off. So just doing my own thing, reading and writing and getting classes ready for the fall. So good stuff.
There you go.
Summer's in full swing. Trying to stay in shape for hiking. I'm going to go hiking in a couple weeks again. And I know you've got some stuff planned. So yeah, there's a lot going on, man.
Yep. To that point, Zach, what are we talking about today?
Well, we normally don't do these. I don't know
I
how
like these actually. These are one of enjoy doing these episodes.
my kid loves it when we do this. I've got something opinionated, I've got to say. A hot take, if you will. My 2 cents. I feel like, who was the guy that was at the end of 60 Minutes? Was it Andy
Yeah,
Rooney?
Andy Rooney. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Why is it that every time I get hash browns, they cook them too long? Yeah, I've got a little bit of a hot take today that both of mine stem from the trip that I just took. I have some feels. Yeah, I hope listeners will go along with us. So,
Yeah.
I guess I should put in a disclaimer here, Eric. We at the Greens and Blues podcast have explicitly tried to keep our podcast kind of apolitical. We're here to talk about mountains. We're not here to make political statements. The whole world is full of it. We can just get on Twitter for half a minute and you get plenty.
Yeah.
So we've really tried to stay out of that space. And so I'm going to make a hot take today that's not supremely political. Hopefully it's not even partisan, but it is a comment about our contemporary politics. I have something that is of interest to people that love public lands. And so that's what I want to talk about. So
There you go.
yeah.
Well, do you want to kick us off with either that take or the other opinion that you want to share today?
I'm not going to jab first. I'm going to go straight for
You
the gut.
get the roundhouse. All right.
Yeah. On my recent trip, I went and hiked Marble Mountain on day one of my trip, and then I shuttled over to near Platoro and hiked in the South San Juans, and we'll probably do an episode on this later. Hiked Conejos Peak. What a beautiful area that is. Then on my third night, I'm a native New Mexican. I like to go to Rio Grande del Norte National Monument. This is in northern New Mexico. It's north of Taos. It's near a town called Cuesta. It's a BLM run campground in the wild and scenic rivers of the Rio Grande. It's a national monument, so it's BLM. It's a great campground. It's $3 a night. And for any of you that camp in national forest campgrounds, those have crawled up to 20, 25 bucks a night of late. just a really well kept campground. It's a little lower, so I can deacclimatize a hair. They have canopies, they have nice tables. I made a lovely steak and I had a glass of wine and then I slept like a champ. It was great,
This sounds glorious.
right? It's always a good place to hang. Collect myself. I went into Taos the next day, checked out a used bookstore. It was all good. While I was at Rio Grande del Norte, so they're on a mesa top there, there were very prominent signs throughout the monument saying no fresh water for our guests. I'm sure they had some at the visitor center for like using the bathroom, but no fresh water for their guests. And I was like, that's strange.
Hmm.
I just so happened to need fresh water. And so I was picking up my tent and airing it out the morning after I camped. And I see a guy that works there and I ask him, I'm like, hey man, what's with the lack of fresh water? Like it's just a pump, it's one of those pump
Yeah.
thingies.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what's with the lack of fresh water here? He's like, well, pump went out on the well and pump costs $20,000 to replace. And he's like, we don't have it. And we don't know when we're ever going to have it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we just left it there. It got me to thinking about the larger context within which all of that is going on.
Yep.
The BLM has had its budget cut, like a lot of federal agencies, they've had personnel cuts. This is where my hot take comes, Eric. For anyone that listens to this, you are hiking on public land.
Hmm.
Like, unless you just
Most of the
solely,
time.
unless you solely hike on Culebra, uh, or Bartlett Peak and like skirt around the mining operations of Asarco, you are hiking on public land, pretty much solely Forest Service land. I don't think we have yet to see the effects of the stuff that happened in the spring with Doge, the
Hmm.
Department of Government Efficiency. 5,000 Forest Service workers left the workforce, were either fired or forced into early retirement. 2,500 National Park Service workers were pushed out as well. That's a 25% reduction in the workforce at the Forest Service. Now they've asked 1,400 of them to come back because they realize it's firefighting season and they don't have anyone to fight fires.
Yep.
That's what's happened. And what's going to happen is that it's the large omnibus budget bill that's working its way through, that's been passed by the House.
Hmm.
Who knows what happens to it in the Senate, if it can even live. It has some things that are startling for public lands. I did research, Eric.
Let's just say this sounds like you're
I,
really familiar with what
I,
is in that bill.
well, here's what's in the bill. It proposes a sale of 3 million acres of public land in the Intermountain West. So these are Forest Service and BLM lands that in various states would be sold off. States have first right of refusal. So, like Colorado, the state could buy it.
Yeah.
So you may not be hiking in the Mount Harvard Wilderness anymore. You may be hiking in the state of Colorado Mount
Hmm.
Harvard Wilderness or
Yeah.
Collegiate Peaks Wilderness. But in other states like Utah, Nevada, Idaho, those will almost certainly go up for private sale. So Forest Service and BLM lands being converted into a private good, which means you may no longer have access to those lands.
Hmm.
There's a proposal to cut the forest and rangeland research programs. So those are research programs like if you see up high, sometimes they have areas marked off to research like boreal toads.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Or you and I met those guys doing research on Forest Service land last year on Sunshine and
On
Red
Sunshine and Red
Cloud.
Cloud. Yep.
The proposal is to eliminate that program. The current proposal is to cut $3.8 billion out of the interior budget. And so the interior is Park Service and BLM, and 3.8 billion out of 18 billion. So that's, rough math, about 18%.
Man.
The Forest Service budget would be a $1 billion cut from 5.7 billion to 4.7. The EPA would receive a 54% cut to its budget. The BLM, which is what started this story, would have a $200 million cut to its conservation programs, which includes national monuments. So, just looking at all this, here's my two hot takes. The
Good.
first hot take is this sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Those are huge numbers. I mean, every single one of those is, oh my gosh.
yeah, This is my second point, and hopefully this is much more nuanced. Like I said, anyone that listens to this enjoys public lands. And what I find interesting is that public lands in the United States are one of the most bipartisan things.
Mm.
When you go to Colorado in the summer, you're going to find license plates from red states, from blue states. People in Texas that are very red in political persuasion love driving the Alpine Loop. They love going and trying to hike a 14er with their friends. I think if you were to get people to like actually give their input, 95% of Americans love public lands.
Yeah.
They they love what they provide, the opportunity to get away from hotter climates, the opportunity to see beautiful places, and they love the fact that it's a public good to be enjoyed by all.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a private good like Culebra, and by the way, the people that take care of that ranch do a fantastic job of managing it as a wilderness preserve almost.
Yeah.
But it's a $150 reservation. They cap the reservations. The great thing about public land is that you can go there anytime. It's for all of us. And there's no entry fee, there's no gates. And I see these budget cuts as an affront to something that hopefully I'm not on my high horse, but is deeply American. Because if you go to places like Europe, they don't have a lot of public land. It's all private. And you have to like request access to hike through private land a lot of the time. Or there's cut throughs. Like if you want to go hike the Matterhorn near Zermatt,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
just basically hike behind people's fence lines. So
Interesting.
the bill hasn't even passed, but it's going to affect things like wildfire management, trail maintenance, Forest Service road maintenance, a lot of the little programs that are on the down low that allow us to access these places and make it feel like a seamless wilderness experience require a lot of infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And they require people working hard to make sure that these places stay what they are. I really, really worry about this stuff. And I hope that's not too political, but by the way, utterly predictable. Like this stuff has been stated for a while. Like this is where this was going to go. I'm not surprised,
Mm.
but it really worries me that I feel like there's a consensus in America around conservation of public land, and this is clawing a lot of that back.
It's going almost fully against that principle. Yeah, you did a lot of research on that, and that again, those are massive numbers. I had no idea that that was how much things were getting cut. I would agree. That's very concerning for those of us that enjoy the outdoors, that enjoy mountains of all kinds, let alone trails that are at 11,000 feet or whatever. This is all getting affected. So, man, sale of public lands. Is it crazy for me to call that lunacy? Like that sounds
That
crazy to me.
so they're couching it under the idea of, there's a housing crisis, right? They're like, oh, we'll sell public lands for housing. I'm sorry, that's crap. Nobody's going to build houses out in the middle of the desert in Nevada. This is the secret aim of Senator Mike Lee in Utah. For the longest time, there are people in Utah and Idaho that resent the fact that there's a bunch of public federal land in those states. And this is just their way of getting rid of it. And they want to put it in private hands. Yeah, I think I could not enjoy these places. We could not have these pursuits if it weren't for public land.
Exactly.
And I think there's so many people that it continues to grow. And I think ironically, if they sell this stuff, it will end up hurting the small communities it's meant to protect. Because think of a place like Alma or Fairplay
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
or Silverton, if it didn't have all that public land around it, if people didn't have access to those places, those little communities would just wither. I think this is kind of, in some ways, anti-rural.
Hmm.
It may favor a few rich people that can buy up public lands in the Intermountain West and go throw a mine on there or whatever, but it's certainly not for the American people as a whole.
Right.
So no, it's not lunacy, Eric. I just feel really passionate about this. I've always felt passionate about preserving public wilderness, public wildlands, and yeah, I just have grave concerns about where this is headed, and I encourage people if this bill hasn't passed when this episode is released, I encourage people if they feel strongly about it to write their senator, congressman, whomever,
Yeah, let them know this is not okay with us, especially those of us that really enjoy the outdoors and spend a lot of time out there.
and spend our money out there. I
Yeah,
think that's a language that they speak.
it's a good call. I knew that this bill was in Congress now. I knew that budget cuts were involved with it. I had no idea the extent of the proposal to sell public land. Yeah, I'm going to restate it. That's lunacy to me, and that's not a good thing for those of us that enjoy the outdoors. So I appreciate you sharing your hot take on that.
Yeah, that and the staff and budget cuts are really worrisome. Part of what makes this country great is our wilderness and all these wonderful places that we all get to enjoy in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, all
Hmm.
these other places. And hope a consensus kind of congeals around protecting these places more. So,
Agreed.
well, now, Eric, you said you had a hot take today, a kind of connected set of observations. So, what do you got, my friend?
I do. So, and you already alluded to some of it when you mentioned that we need firefighters in Colorado. It's such a dry state that, especially in the summer, wildfires are a high risk. They're a high risk every year. But my fear is that this year they may be even higher than normal, particularly in the southern half of the state, and even more particularly in the San Juans in the southwestern part of
Mm-hmm.
Colorado, because our snowpack this year was low, and it was actually on pace to be historically low across the entire state. Now, I think in the northern half of the state, we've kind of recovered and had some storms that came through that provided some precipitation, but in the San Juans in particular, there's still drought conditions. They're
Yeah.
still way below average, and that scares me. On closer to average years, we've had some of the worst wildfires in the state's history just in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So, this isn't a hot take. It is very related to what you just mentioned, but it's more of a plea that if we're hiking in the wilderness, and we want to be, if we strive to leave no trace, and I have thoughts about that whole terminology, leave no trace. Like if we're there, we're leaving some, like at least leaving our footprints, right? But
You're a quantum observer of events. You're gonna change
exactly.
quantum reality, man. But
Here we
anyway, I'm
go.
sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Here come Paul Rudd is coming and knocking on our doors, letting us know that we can't not leave a trace. So if we're striving to leave no trace, let's leave even less of a trace this summer, especially if we're in the southwestern part of the state. I'm really, really afraid of just how much drier it is down there than it normally is, and how much more risk there is of wildfires. And I mean, if we want to relate it back to what your point was, if there are less firefighters out there, there's going to be maybe even more risk that these could get out of control really quickly and harder to contain down the road. So that's my fear. And my plea is let's be even more careful than we normally would be. If we're camping, backpack, let's make sure those fires are out 100%. We have enough water to do that. Let's, disconnect our jet boils from our little gas cans. Let's close our sterno containers. Let's do everything. Does anyone use sterno anymore? Zach,
I
have
don't.
you used sterno before?
Maybe people in the buffet industry.
That's that's the
Uh,
last time I saw sterno was
I
at a
mean, I've
catering
got a
thing.
little. I'm really excited to use. I got one of those little micro MSRs.
There you go.
Maybe we'll do a gear review here because I'm about to break that bad boy out in a couple weeks. But yeah, if you're using that, like, it's
Oh,
going to be no
yeah.
campfire
Yep.
season. Yeah, as the Southwest gets drier and drier, and we have less people to fight those fires, I think that becomes more and more imperative that it becomes a matter of personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, lightning ignition is a thing, and we
That's
can't do anything about
Yep.
that,
That
but
causes fires too, but
we've got to prevent this the
The human
self-caused, the
caused. Hmm.
human-caused ones as much as possible. I mean, all those wildfires in California were human-caused
Hmm.
this past winter.
Hmm.
So I'm with you, Eric. It's looking at the snowpack totals. As I planned my trip,
Mm.
I was looking at, historic snowpack for San Juan's and the Lower Sangre de Cristo, and they got saved a little bit by a May storm.
Hmm.
Got a little bit of a late snowpack, and sometimes that can come in and kind of save the day a little bit, kind of damp things down. But as the summer goes on, if it gets really hot, it could be very problematic.
Yep.
I agree with your plea, my friend.
Okay. Well, do you have another take that we can glean from
Well, this one is
Zachary?
lightning related, and it's another plea.
Really? Here we go.
Yeah, here
Wow.
we go. Didn't even plan to be thematic today,
We
but
didn't know.
we go straight from congressional omnibus bills to leave no trace principles to my story now. Story number 2 from my last trip. I will hereby explain the .95 designation for my hike of Mount Antero.
Oh, yeah.
So, for those of you that know Mount Antero, there's really one way to do it. Well, there's multiple ways to do it, but the standard route is to go up the Baldwin Gulch Road.
Hmm.
It's a
Yep.
very, very, very rough
It's
Jeep
a
road.
bad road.
It's a
Yep.
horrific road. I've never hiked it before. Straight up admit that. I've done all the Sawatch 14ers except for it and Holy Cross, and you and I
Hmm.
want to do Holy Cross later this summer.
Yep.
The standard route is up Baldwin Gulch, and I noticed that there was snow on the Baldwin Gulch Road, and I thought, what better time to do it than now? And I don't have to compete with Jeeps.
And you're gonna have Jeeps all over if once that
Yep.
snow melts out. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought I could have the place to myself, and I did. So I get up. Had a really hard time actually finding it. I ended up like in
Oh
St.
no.
Elmo. I'm
Oh
like,
no, the ghost town. Yeah.
I think I went a little too far here. Finally found the trail. I go up this unrelenting Jeep trail. It just goes forever and ever and ever. And I worked my way up that trail, and there was snow at various points that made it impassable for cars and almost made it impassable for me at a couple points.
Wow.
So, for reference, for those of you that want to know, I hiked it on June 5th. So, going up the trail, and there's kind of a flat spot at 13,100 feet. And I look out and I'm like, there's clouds rolling in. They're not Bob Ross happy clouds.
Yeah.
They're like they're like Black Sabbath like dark clouds. Wah, 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 like the devil's chord.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm keeping an eye on that. I'm going to check those out. There were some lifting up over Mount White, which is to the south, and there were some
Hmm.
lifting up over Bicarbonate Peak, which is to the west.
The west there. Yep.
And I was like, I think I may have a window here. So I like start hauling butt, but I'm not really hauling butt because it's my third hike in 4 days, and I've
And
already
you're
gone
at
like
13,000 feet.
13,000 feet, and 3 days previous I was at 1,000 feet. I'm going as fast as I can here.
Yeah.
For those of you that have done Antero, or if you want to look at the 14ers.com route description, I get up to the place where the mine is at 13,840 feet. And I can't see the mine, it's covered in snow. But I get there. I've been kind of occluded from seeing the clouds around me up until that point by a bluff to the west of me. And I look around and I'm like, I think I might make a go for it here. So I like cross this snowfield and I go, there's like these two little hoodoo gendarmes on the saddle there. And I go past those and I start working my way up the last final pitch. And I look to the south and like the clouds are like really black.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, I have that moral struggle in my head
Yo,
of
yeah.
like, Zach, you can do this. And I'm looking to the south and I'm looking at Mount White and it's like these clouds are like brewing up over it
Oh
like demons in
man.
in the movie
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, and I was like, "Oh, I'm maybe 20 minutes from the top." And then I looked at those clouds and I was like, "They're maybe 20 minutes from being on me."
Yeah.
And I did the hardest thing I've ever had to do hiking in a long time. I pulled the cord and I was like,
That-
"Dang it. I probably could have hit a golf ball at the top of the peak." But I was like, this is not, I don't feel it. This is not feeling good. Got my dad's story of,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
ground lightning in my head. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to get out of here. And I could just feel that kind of viscerally. So I turn around and I just start I like text my wife. I think I texted you too,
You
Eric. I
did.
was
You
like,
did. I got,
this is what
yeah.
failure
I
looks like.
thought,
It's my picture
oh
from the saddle.
man.
We'll talk another time about whether I count that or not. But I start hauling butt down and like I'm flying down. These clouds are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm to the switchbacks that go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I haven't seen a soul all day. I mean, I saw
Mm.
a deer and I saw a lot of grouse and ptarmigan, but I see a dude coming up the trail.
Oh my gosh. No way.
And it's like, I'm probably at 12:05 now, right?
Okay.
I see this dude coming up and I was like, hey man, what you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm coming up. And it's like, it's
What
noon.
time is this?
It's
Noon?
noon.
He's coming up.
It's noonish. It's 12. He's at 12:05. He's like, how far'd you get? I was like, oh, I almost got to the top, but I turned around and bailed because of those clouds. And
I was gonna say, did he not look at the sky?
I like point at them and they're kind of swirling around. It had snowed the night before because it was pretty stormy,
Okay.
a little dusting. It was
Yeah,
real
yeah,
pretty.
yeah.
And I was like, that doesn't look good to me. I was like, I bailed. And so like we're still well above timberline, super exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. And like the minute he
Oh,
said that,
you're
I wanted to be
kidding
like,
me.
what are you keeping an eye on? Like
What?
they're right there. Like, and so I keep kicking butt. And maybe 10 minutes later, I'm like just a bit above timberline.
Mm-hmm.
Because right where the switchbacks start is essentially timberline on that Baldwin Gulch Road. The minute I hit that, so I had descended what almost 2,000 feet
Really far. Oh yeah.
in 55 minutes. I had
Mm-hmm.
like plunge stepped through some snowfields and like I was smoking it. The minute I hit timberline, it opens up with hail
Oh man.
and like light hail on me, but I can see up above that Antero is cloud wrapped and that bicarbonate is cloud wrapped and really dark. And I'm getting like grapple, hail, rain combo coming
Sure.
down on me. But like I know that anything above me is getting it a lot worse.
Yeah.
And I just thought about that dude and I was like, is he still going? Like,
He probably got socked in.
who knows, right? And I like kept hauling butt down. It kept raining. Like for a minute there, it really hailed on me, like little pea size hail. I've been hailed on bigger, like golf ball size hail on
Mm-hmm.
Mount
Yeah.
Maxwell, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
I'm like smoking it down still, and it's easy to smoke that trail because it's super, there's not one moment where you're not going downhill. And I thought to myself, a lot of the time you kind of make that decision to bail and you regret it.
Mm-hmm.
I did not regret that
Sounds like you made the right call all the way.
because let's assume I had taken another 25, 30 minutes to get to the top. Let's say it's just 20 minutes, and then I get up there and I had lunch packed,
Yep.
as I normally do. Say it, I'd taken a chance to eat a peach up there and to relax and call people, text my wife, whatever. And I would have been at 13,000 feet still when that hail started coming down.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see thunder or lightning in that cloud, but there's no way to predict whether or not that occurs.
Exactly.
I thought to myself, I'm actually really grateful I made the decision to bail on that. Like,
Yep.
I may have to return one day and knock that summit out, or have a Jeep drive me to the saddle and then I just like run
Hitch
up
a
and run
ride.
down. Yeah, I worried about that guy getting struck by lightning.
Yeah.
And this moment became more prescient when I thought about when I was just this past week, June 12th, there was a rescue on Torrey's Peak
Mm.
and a couple was there and one pair of that couple got struck by lightning. The risk of getting hit by lightning is like 1 in 1,000. Pretty low. Like most of the time you're going to be fine. Even if you're dumb, you're going to make it. But that 1 in 1,000 could be fatal.
As risky as it gets.
So here's my plea. People, the mountain will always be there. Turn around. Especially if clouds are black. I'm no meteorologist, but but if they're that dark, that's not
Nothing good is coming from them.
no black cloud has ever delivered like puppies, right?
Okay.
So
That's not where the unicorns come from. It's those
yeah,
clouds.
rainbow bright or little golden retriever,
Oh
fluffy
gosh.
golden retrievers falling onto the trail. No, that's not how it happens. And so, yeah, not necessarily a hot take. That's always the advice that's given, but people in the moment have a hard time making those judgments.
Yeah.
And I just saw, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but like the Colorado 14ers Facebook page had 3 or 4 posts just this past week of people being like, yeah, I got hailed on up high and I still made it down. And I want to be like, bro, if you got hailed on up high, you made a bad decision.
Mm-hmm. That's yep.
Sometimes it happens, but yeah, if you get hailed on, like for the most part, that's kind of, you can see clouds forming around you. You can
Yeah.
make decisions to prevent that.
You could have started getting down before that. Yep.
And you never know when those storms are going to have lightning in them. So anyway, be safe out there, guys.
That's an important plea. I mean, we could probably say that during an episode every June and release that and
Public service and dun
and
dun dun dun.
the more you know. And someone will benefit from that. Even if it's one person, like someone will hear that and say, "Oh, that's a good reminder."
Yeah. If the dude that was hiking up Antero listens to this, we had a little chat. Hey, reach out, man.
Reach out to us, seriously. Let
Greens
us
and
know you're
Blues
okay.
podcast at gmail.com because I want to hear what your story was. I want to know how bad that got. But
Mm.
yeah, okay. So finally, Eric, you said you had a final smoking hot summer take.
We'll see if this even makes it into the episode.
Oh, it's going to
So
make it, brother. This is going to be good.
So, and there was maybe a slight transition that you just mentioned when it comes to, black clouds sharing puppy dogs and golden retrievers. That's not what happens. Well, my hot take, this hurts a little bit
Mm.
because Zach, I think I love dogs.
Oh, dear. That's where we're headed, huh? You like little tiny dogs.
Well, well, our dog right now is kind of tiny. Our previous Shiba was a little more in the mid-sized
Yeah.
range. I don't know why I was reminded of this over the past couple of weeks, but I was. I have two very prominent data points, if you can call them those, when it comes to experiences with dogs on the mountain. I've ran into a good number of dogs, but there are two dogs in particular that stand out for very, very different reasons.
Hmm.
And I'd like to tell these two stories before I actually get into my take. So
Okay.
there's one very good dog that I've had lots of good experiences with, and you know this dog, Zach, because
Yeah.
it was your dog, Lacey, who it was a Shetland sheepdog. She unfortunately passed last year, and she
Hmm.
17, 18 years old.
Somewhere around there, she had a hard early life, but yeah, 16 and a half years
Okay.
old. Yeah. Hiked
So
50 some odd Centennial Peaks.
so you hiked a ton with her, and I
Hmm.
I met her the day I met you in
Yeah.
2012 when we hiked Harvard. She probably could have gotten up the mountain 2 hours before you and I did. She was just
She wouldn't have left me, but yes,
yeah,
if I could trail run, she would have done it.
yeah. But she ended up being, to me, the perfect prototypical dog to hike in the mountain. She was athletic, she was agile, she had really good energy, and she, as a herding dog, she and other herding dogs thrive on having a task or having a
Hmm.
goal, having something to accomplish. And if you're trying to summit a 14er, that's a clear goal. That's our
Yeah.
goal. That's what we're trying to get to.
I'm going wherever he's going.
Yeah,
That's good enough for her.
and she could sense that. She could
Hmm.
sense that's where you were trying to go, and so that made it her task and her goal was to herd you up the mountain and get you up there as fast as she could help you do it.
And I will add one more thing to that. She was under voice control. So she
Okay.
could hike without a leash, but if I said Lacey, she would immediately come to me.
She listened
The
fantastically.
only time she never did that is when there was elk poo on the trail and she would try to roll in it. And she was, she would lose her mind. Had like, oh, maybe we should just have a whole episode of Lacey's stories, but just did, she loved to do a full back roll onto the greasiest, nastiest elk and moose poo she could find.
That's, oh my gosh. I'm just picturing it. I can picture what that
Yeah.
would have looked like.
Oh, just happy as can be too.
Oh boy. And so one other thing, she was medium sized. She was, I think, a
She's
good size for hiking a
36
mountain.
pounds at full
Yeah.
weight. Yeah.
That's a really good weight for a dog, I think, to be trying to put in that much effort to get to a mountain summit.
Hmm.
I hiked with her a number of times with you. Always a great experience.
Yep.
I also have a data point that was not so good.
Uh-huh. I'm waiting
So
for the shoe to drop here.
yeah, yeah, it'll drop a bit. So in I forget 2014, 2015, I met up with another guy that I met on the 14ers.com forum, and we hiked the Decalibron. And this guy was great. We had a great time, had a lot of fun up there. Going from Lincoln to Bross, we came across a couple that was stopped on the trail, and they're black lab. We said, "Hey, how's it going?" And they said, "Oh, not so good." And I looked down and I could see immediately why it wasn't so good. There was blood on the trail, and their dog's paws were bloody.
Oh man.
So I was like, oh man, this poor pup. From there, things got foggy. I don't know if they had tape to tape up their pup's paws, and I don't know how they got down.
And that
I
dog's
just
probably too heavy to carry.
that's exactly where I was going with some of this is that black lab probably weighed 80 pounds.
Yeah.
You're not going to carry that pup, certainly not all the way back to Democrat and back down. And you're certainly not going to have a good time. That ski slope down Bross is wonky enough for a human with two good feet, let alone a dog with at least two or three bad feet. So
Yeah.
they were in a real pickle. And I struggle with whether to place blame on the owners or not. That ends up being where my hot take was going to go. My hot take was going to be, and I think I'm open to modifying this a little bit, but my hot take was going to be, frankly, big dogs shouldn't be on the mountain. Only
Mm,
because if you come into that level of having a bad time, if they end up struggling that much, how are you getting down? How is that dog getting down? So, and a big dog, a lot of weight. Of course, they should have the frame that can support that weight, but that's that much weight pounding down on naked paws. And at the top of a 13 or 14, there's going to be sharp rocks. I'm sorry, even if there's a trail, there's going to be sharp rocks around.
yeah.
And so I think a big dog really, really is going to struggle if the worst were to happen. And for them, the worst happened. Their dog couldn't walk. So
Oh man.
that's
Ooh.
rough. And I would even go on the other side too and say that, small dogs are probably going to struggle too. Just,
I've seen people take like a Chihuahua or a Dachshund
yes,
up a peak before, and I'm like, how did they make it with those little
e-
tiny legs?
exactly. Like, of course, there's not as much weight to carry, but they're generally, if you have a smaller dog, it's because they have smaller legs and they have to use them that much faster and use that much energy to keep up with their humans. So I think small dogs are not great either to have on the mountain. So
So really, just Shelties.
so that's where I landed was my original take was
The ideal hiking dog.
a Shetland sheepdog. No, seriously, medium-sized herding dogs seriously are
Yeah.
ideal as well built and well wired to hike a mountain as any other kind of dog. I really believe that.
That's why, I mean, the Colorado State dog is like a Australian sheepdog or
Yeah,
like
uh-huh.
a border collie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I would say now I see people hiking with bigger dogs, but I would say a couple conditions need to be met there. If you're going to hike with any dog, you need to toughen up their paws first.
Mm.
And that means going and either running with them on bad terrain at home, wherever that is. So my first 3 or 4 summers with Lacey, we would rent a condo up in Copper Mountain and I'd hike with her all summer.
Mm-hmm. You're going exactly where I was going to go with
And
this.
by the end of the summer, she could walk on whatever the heck
You
she
could
wanted to walk
probably
on.
rock it. Yep.
Yeah, her little pads were tough as nails.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we started just coming up for just weekends, like I do now, it got really hard on her feet
Mm-hmm.
because she was used to just taking walks around the block, chasing a frisbee. So she was in great, in human terms,
Shape.
she's in great cardio shape.
Yep.
She could still go. Her pads would get pretty tender.
Yeah.
So first things first, yeah, you got to toughen up your dog's pads. And second of all, you got to have a plan if
Mm-hmm.
things don't go well to get that dog out. and they make doggy slings that you
Yeah.
can put on. Now, an 80-pound dog, whoo,
Yeah.
that's a heck of a haul, but you could
Yeah.
do it. It looked pretty awkward, but you could haul a dog down. So, like, you've got to be prepared for stuff like that. I think we should look at hiking with a dog like we do hiking with a kid. Only do it if you're prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you hike with a little kid, you need to know how you're going to get them out of there.
Exactly.
Because they're dependent on you and they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Only you
Exactly.
do.
You're the one
So,
that's putting them in that situation. Yep.
yeah, you're putting them in that situation. So I'm with you. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say no big dogs, but I would say, boy, if you're a big dog owner, man, you need to really think hard about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how your dog's going to hold up. Because dogs are not invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and dogs don't have a control switch either. Like they're gonna go hit that tundra and they're gonna go bonkers. They're gonna get the
Mm-hmm.
zoomies and they're gonna run around because they're so excited to be in the open air and there's all these new smells and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they can run themselves out.
And there's some stuff you can't control for any dog. So they're gonna get spooked by a marmot or a sheep or something like that.
I would argue that a lot of terriers are probably pretty bad hiking companions
Mm.
because they like to just go on walkabout. So yeah, I think you got to really know your dog and know what your dog can and can't do. If you need to put your dog on a leash,
Mm. Oh
or
yeah.
or you need to bring the little booties for
Big
your
booties.
dog.
Oh yeah.
Lacey hated those things. We put them on her and she tried to tear them
Some
off with
dogs
her teeth.
do. Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot to think about when bringing a dog up. I thought you were gonna go like a dog like kind of attacked you, and I was like,
No,
I was
thankfully.
watching the movie Airplane this week, and there's that golden retriever Shep that like
Yeah.
attacks Robert Stack when he gets
Yeah.
called in.
Yep. Yep.
No, Shep, no,
No.
and he like jumps on the guy.
Yeah. That wasn't where I was going with that. But what I'll say is once I thought of that topic, I started, they tell you don't read the comments, right? So I read the comments and I went on forums and I was shocked at how polarizing that question is. I
Oh
probably shouldn't
man,
have been,
when there's a
but like,
dogs post on 14ers.com,
oh,
woo!
like there were people, my dachshund loved going up Mount Sherman and it's my lab gets depressed when we don't go up a 14er on any weekend. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, and I think labs maybe that breed is kind of the
They're always
divine,
depressed. They're the
like,
most emo dog.
but they're so friendly. So I can see why people want to take them. So here's where I land is okay, if you have to post, hey, should I bring my schnauzer up quandary? If you don't know the answer to that question, the answer's no. Don't take your schnauzer up quandary. Like you have work to do before you can answer that question. Like my recommendation would be, like you said, go, take a long weekend, camp out in Buena Vista or Fairplay or something like that, and go around with your dog, toughen up their paws, see how they do on those trails. And if you want to, closer to the end, work your way up to, my favorite 12er, Bison Peak, which is not far from Fairplay. Go try and do something like that. Keep a really good eye on your dog, see how they're doing. If they can make that work, then work your way up to a 13er or a 14er. That would be my recommendation because then you're gaining confidence in, okay, my dog has the ability to do this. Whatever the factor is, their paws are tough enough, they're in shape, they'll listen to me, they can handle it, whatever it is. Work your way up to it. But a stranger on a forum is not going to know how in shape your
How Toodles is going to do on on
exactly.
on on Mount Princeton with the
Yeah,
rocky last
exactly.
100. Yeah, my dog was strangely fabulous at the more scrambling, the better for
She
her.
was fantastic at it.
I just mentioned Mount Princeton. I remember that, and I remember, or like Pacific Peak was the one I really remember because that was
Oh
the first
man.
really hard 13er she ever did, and she just galloped up that
Sounded like
thing.
she just smoked it. Yeah.
And I kept looking around like, where is she? Oh, she's 20 feet above me looking at me like,
Where are
so
you?
where are you, Dad? Why are you going so slow?
Oh
So
gosh.
yeah, you got to know your dog. And
Yep,
I mean, that goes with all things hiking. You got to know yourself too.
it
But
does for sure.
I rather enjoy that, Eric. I think we should keep that in the podcast. I think that's good. That goes with
All
the don't
right.
get struck by lightning admonition that I
Yeah.
just had. So here are the takeaways from today's episode, everybody. First, write your senator or congressman. Second of all, don't get struck by lightning. Third of all, don't get a schnauzer stuck on the maroon bells.
Right, exactly.
That's your to-do list.
That's it. Can I add one more little PSA, like completely unrelated to any of this, Zach?
Absolutely. Get your dogs spayed or neutered. Thank you,
Yes,
Bob
yeah, that's
Barker.
that's right, Bob Barker. It's good thing you mentioned that, Zach. It's Bob Barker not with us anymore. He can't tell us. I don't think we've mentioned this at all. The Mount Blue Sky Road this summer
Mm,
is fully closed. It's closed during the wintertime, but they're actually doing some maintenance on the road itself near Summit Lake, and so the whole dang thing is closed. So if you're planning on summiting Mount Blue Sky, you're either going to have to hike all the way from Echo Lake,
walk
or
the road, baby.
you could walk most of the road, the part that's not under construction, or do it from Guanella Pass. Like there's various ways to do it, but you're just not going to be able to drive up to Summit Lake or drive up to the parking lot and get to the summit. That won't be an option in 2025.
Well, thank you for that lovely PSA, Eric.
Random stuff for you.
No, that's great. Well, Eric, I think we've had enough fun today
Yeah, we
with
have.
our hot takes. We will be back for lukewarm takes. We've got some guests lined up in the coming weeks and months. If anyone wants to reach out and give us their hot take, how can they reach us?
Ooh. We would love to hear your hot takes at greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group, which is easy to find. You can follow our YouTube channel. Zach, some of your videos from your recent hikes on Marble Mountain and Conejo, I think they might make some really nice YouTube shorts. We'll have to
Oh,
post
good.
those
I, I
here.
threw
And
I threw a little shade at you on the Canejos one. I was
you
like,
did.
Eric should be here, but he's not.
I took that one in stride. But yeah, there's plenty of way. Oh, you're on Blue Sky too, Zach.
Yeah, ZACH.Simpson. I really enjoyed this episode, Eric.
This was fun.
This was a lot of fun. I hope everybody out there is enjoying a fun early summer season of hiking, and we'll see you again next time.